Life can have its major twists and turns. For one young man, police knocked on his door and what they told him changed his life forever. What did they say? Well, you'll have to watch to the end to find out. It might sound strange, but sometimes illegal acts are committed in order to protect someone in trouble. Breaking the law in almost any scenario is never advisable, but when it's for someone's well-being, it can be an understandable choice. One man had made a good life for himself in a small rural town in Minnesota. However, when a police officer knocked on his door, his entire world changed. Suddenly, a bizarre series of events that led up to the officer's arrival started to unfold. Michael Richard Landers lived with his grandparents in the small rural town of Long Prairie, Minnesota. However, when he was 24 years old, he was given news that changed his life. Michael worked at an auto parts shop in a quiet town with a population of just 3,500 people. Even though he lived at his grandparents' house, he helped out with expenses as much as he could, but his grandparents weren't the only people relying on him to make a good living. He also had a wife named Bobby, too. He and Bobby were together for quite some time, and now they were about to start another exciting chapter together. Bobby was pregnant with their first child. Michael already had 2 children from a previous relationship, but he was thrilled to start a family with Bobby. However, this wasn't the only new beginning they would face. One afternoon, after Michael had returned home from work, he was helping his grandparents with some chores around the house, when suddenly, someone knocked on the door. Standing on the front porch was a police officer named John Russell. Naturally, Michael was startled by the sudden presence of the cop. Officer Russell then proceeded to tell Michael some extremely unsettling news. What might that news be, you ask? Well, before we find out, we'd like to remind you to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell right now. If you do, comment Notification Squad, and we'll reply to all of you with a thank you. He told Michael the grandparents he had been living with for the last 19 years had actually kidnapped him from his actual parents in Indiana. Michael was dumbfounded. According to Michael's biological mother, who spoke to the officer, the grandparents took her 5-year-old son out one morning for breakfast, and they never returned. But why would they do such a thing? Well, for starters, Michael's parents were living out of a car at the time, and his grandparents were given temporary custody of their grandson while his mother and father tried to sort things out. But that wasn't the only reason for the grandparents' actions. Michael's mother, Lisa, suffered from mild developmental disabilities. She eventually moved into a group home that didn't accommodate children, and after she was released, she tried to regain custody. That's when Michael vanished for nearly 2 decades. But how did police eventually locate him after so much time? While attending church some 19 years after her son disappeared, Lisa was discussing the details of the case with an Indiana State Police detective. The conversation prompted the detective to revisit the mystery. After some research, the detective discovered that there was someone living in Long Prairie with the same social security number and birthday as Michael. This immediately caught his eye. They eventually tracked down Michael at his grandparents' home in Little Prairie, Minnesota. When Michael's parents were informed of the discovery, they were overwhelmed with emotion. Their son was found at last. Michael's father naturally was incredibly relieved by the news. He was hoping to completely rekindle a relationship with his son after so much time apart. Hopefully, they can do just that.